Hey folks, Dr. Mike Israel here for Renaissance Periodization. Today's talk is about getting motivated to lose fat, especially for the dieting process, which is a really big deal. Not just getting motivated, but staying motivated. Here is the deal. It turns out that the term motivation actually belongs in a much larger context, and that larger context of being able to stick to something and have success with it is actually called adherence. So when people say, oh man, like, I want to find a way to get motivated and stay motivated to lose fat and actually do the diet because dieting's hard, what they're really saying is, I want to be able to find a way to be adherent, to find and keep adherence. Adherence, just being able to do something. So motivation actually means something more specific. We'll get to what it means in just a little bit. But adherence, the ability to stick to a plan, is almost everything. Why? So any diet that cuts calories below your maintenance level will work for fat loss. And any diet that also gives you a reasonable meal schedule, like it's not one meal a day, and it gives you plenty of protein, enough to meet your daily needs for muscle retention, is going to work very well, not just well. So most diet successes don't come down to the details. People say, should I do the South Beach diet? Should I do the zone diet? Should I do this diet, that diet? The real answer that scientists usually say is, it doesn't really much matter as long as you can adhere to it and it just doesn't suck on the fundamentals and set you up for really crappy habits that are unsustainable, again, hurting adherence. So your success is usually determined in huge part by your ability to adhere to the diet and let the diet work. So if it's keto, if it's vegan, if it's paleo, it's whatever, if you do it right and you're hypocaloric at a deficit in calories for 8 weeks or 12 weeks, you're going to be successful. But it doesn't matter how awesome your diet is, how scientific it is, how advanced it is. If you fall off the wagon often or even at all, you're not going to see very good success or no success at all. Now, let's take a look at this concept of adherence and see if we can zone in on it from a scientific perspective to see how we can boost it. Because adherence is basically everything in dieting. There's got to be ways to be able to make sure adherence is as high as possible, and it turns out there are. So adherence can be broken up into essentially 6 constructs, okay? These constructs, or these sub-ideas of adherence, factors that build it and make it up, actually pretty much occur in phases. Some of them start and sort of never stop. Some of them have distinct times when they start and stop, and some of them only occur later in the process. But essentially, if you do like a 12-week diet, you can break up the diet adherence into various parts of these constructs. Some of them occur earlier and then sort of fade out. Some of them occur all the time, and some of them occur later. And by understanding each one of these, we can greatly, greatly benefit, and making sure we do the right stuff at every stage of the process to keep our adherence, to boost it as high as possible, and keep it as high as possible, and potentially even let it climb, so that we can have as much success as possible. Just like we want to make sure we're doing the right diet that gives our bodies what we need, we want to make sure our mindset is correct to keep our minds what we need, because at the end of the day, they say something like whatever sports or whatever percent mental, dieting is all mental. That's not that wrong, right? Dieting, as long as you have the basics, is mostly all mental, and the basics aren't that complex. So we have 6 constructs of adherence. They are inspiration, motivation, intention, discipline, habit, and passion. And they're often misused, often misunderstood. There's great stuff here. Let's take a look at them one by one. And we're going to do essentially 3 or 4 things. We're going to talk about what each one of them is. We're going to talk about what it's good for. We're going to talk about what it's not good for, because some folks try to misapply these at the various stages and various things that they're not very well applied for. And lastly, and probably most importantly, we'll talk about how to boost these various constructs to get the most out of them. So first up, inspiration. Inspiration is the spark that gets you to want to start a diet, and it's good for getting you to start. If you never inspire to start, no amount of habit or passion or anything is even possible, because you've never started. Now, what is inspiration not good for? It's not good for sustaining you continuously in your adherence for longer than like a day. Okay, that's the thing about inspiration. An example of inspiration is you see a movie where someone loses a bunch of weight and gets in shape and gets the girl or gets the guy or something. You leave the movie theater like pumped. You're like, oh my God, I want to do a diet. How long does that feeling last? Well, I'll tell you exactly how long it lasts for most people until they go to sleep that night. And then they wake up the next morning and they're like, diet? What the hell was I thinking? You know, like everyone wants to be a boxer after they see the recent Rocky movie, but not exactly everyone goes out and gets boxing gloves the next day. You just leave the theater doing this, and then a couple hours, sometimes minutes later, it's just not a thing anymore, right? So if you're thinking that inspiration is going to carry you all the way through a diet, you're so wrong. Some people get into their inspiration scrolling through Instagram and looking at cool transformations or people that are super jacked or super lean, and they're like, I want to be that. And it gives you that like instant bump. You can feel inspiration. It's like, ooh, let's do it. That's the thing is like, if you don't have all the core concepts in place, like building good habits, for example, having discipline and willpower, stuff we'll talk about later, inspiration will never get you through a diet. Because when you get hungry and you actually have to be executing a diet, no Instagram scroll is ever going to save you. You're like, I don't know, these people are lean, but whatever, fuck them. I don't care anymore. I want to eat tacos. And then you just go eat tacos and you fall off the face. So inspiration is good for getting us started, but it's not good for sustainable adherence. For that, we'll need the later concepts. So how do we boost inspiration? Because we do want plenty of inspiration at the back end. A lot of people, once they get going, they're good to go. Getting them going is the trouble. So how can we boost it? Well, first, you can be around inspirational people. If you're around folks at your gym or at work or whatever that are super pumped and super ready to go and they're succeeding themselves, it's easy to be like, man, I feel like I can do this. Where if you have a lot of negative people, they bring you down, it's tough to get inspired, right? Or if they never do anything inspirational themselves. Sometimes it's the sort of negative inspiration that works really well. You have evidence of the not great shape you're in. Here's a good example. You like the elevator at work breaks, and you've been sort of meaning to diet for a while, lose fat, but you're whatever. The elevator at work breaks, and you have to go up 4 flights of stairs. You walk into your office building, you go up 4 flights of stairs, you get to your work floor, and you're like, and people are like, hey, Bob, how you doing? Good morning. Hey, did you run up the stairs? What are you doing? You're like, run. I took 3 breaks walking up the shit. I'm out of shape. That inspires you in a sort of negative way. Not to say negative is bad, isn't like the opposite of like positive inspiration. That inspires you to do something. You could sit down at your desk and you're wiping sweat off and you're like, that's it. I'm logging on Renaissance Periodization and buying a membership to the diet app or something like that. Shameless plug. But on a serious note, whatever it is you end up doing, you might be like, I got to do something about this now because this is unsustainable. Another really common one that you'll see is people see a picture of themselves at like the beach. You know, people are taking pictures like, hey, hot dogs, fun. And you see a picture of yourself at the beach and you're usually like, ha, I'm the man. But like, you really let yourself go this last year. You took a look at your first picture in the summer or something. You're like, that's me. Like, yeah, isn't it great? We were having fun at the beach last weekend. Here's the pictures. And you're like, wow, I look like shit. And I don't want this. So that can be inspiring in its own way, right? So seeing stuff like that, having those experiences is a big thing to boost inspiration. And seeing diet success stories can be really inspirational. Like another shameless plug, if you go on RP Transformations or the RP Strength Instagram and you scroll through, there's a bunch of really amazing transformations that regular people have. And some of the most impressive ones aren't like when super ripped athletes get even more super ripped. It's when like regular mom and dad kind of people just get a little bit more lean and a little bit healthier and talk about how awesome they feel. And you're like, dude, I can fucking do this. I can do this. That's inspirational. That's all really good stuff to see. So if you want this for yourself or you're helping clients or friends, set them up in these circumstances and they're more likely to be inspired. Now, this next little graphic, which you have on your screen, is essentially like a sort of graphical representation of these concepts. And it's super, super easy it's not super scientific. It's not super complicated. We're just essentially having adherence on the y-axis and time on the x-axis. Inspiration is this red thing that goes up. So it's basically showing us that inspiration can boost your ability to adhere to something for like a day. And then it just rockets back down to nowhere. So inspiration is good to get us in the door, but it won't hold. We need to move on to the next concept that'll be with us for longer. And that is motivation. Again, this whole talk is usually described as motivation. It's not. That's adherence. Motivation is a specific part. It's the one that is essentially the inner desire that you have to want to diet and to sustain the process of dieting. Motivation is goal-directed, and it is very good for fueling your adherence day to day after inspiration has waned. After you're no longer inspired, you don't have that like, ooh, I want to do this. Motivation is that thing that pulls you along in the distance that you're like, I got to do it. I got to do it. I want this and I know it has to be done. It's quieter. It's not as extreme. It doesn't have as many ups and downs, but it does have ups and downs. it waxes and wanes, sometimes every hour, sometimes every day, sometimes every week, and it does this. And it thus can't be your only support every single day. It can be a start, but it waxes and wanes, and sometimes it dips pretty low. So if your adherence is like how good you do on your diet, and your motivation goes like this, you're now doing this well on your diet, which could be very not well. So if you're really motivated one day, you could be eating all the right meals, doing all the right stuff, check plus on everything. If you're really demotivated for a couple of days, you could just be at Taco Bell sitting around and drinking soda out of their machines and eating the taco stuff, just right off there. You're like, just let me in the back of the kitchen. I'm just going to eat tacos myself. Then all of a sudden, some good days of dieting, some crappy days of dieting, then your motivation goes back up. You have some good days, but we all know how calorie balance work. It all averages out. You could just do 3 weeks of dieting and go nowhere. Motivation is not good enough because it waxes and wanes. But it's critical to have because it forms our baseline of a goal-oriented desire to get somewhere. Inspiration is like, I'm going to do this. Motivation is, what is the this that I'm doing? Where am I going? So the most important thing you can have to stay motivated, to get motivated and stay motivated, is a clear end goal for the diet. Motivated for what? I want to lose 15 pounds by December 31st. That is a goal that you can motivate to. Because people say like, hey, are you motivated to train? The next question is, to train for what? Are you motivated to diet? To diet for what? Having a clear goal is super, super important. So once you get inspired, and let's say you're helping your clients, once they get inspired and you show them a transformation photo, they're like, oh, I want to do this. The next conversation is to talk about what this actually is. And if it's a realistic goal, yet a challenging goal, one that's going to make themselves feel really happy, but it's attainable, that's the best combination. Super important. But there are some minor factors that can also help. Being around positive people always helps. If you've got tons of positive people around, it's easy to stay motivated. Here's another one. Seeing positive results day to day, maybe, definitely week to week, keeps your motivation much higher, and letting them sink in. Like you lost 3 pounds last week, and then you lost 2 pounds this past week, and then the next week after you lose another 2 pounds. Oh my God, I'm really doing it. That can boost your motivation like crazy. And it's awesome to be able to let yourself experience that and accept it, which means you're not like, yeah, I lost weight, but whatever. Like, no, I lost weight because I'm doing the good thing. I'm getting on track to meet my goal. As you see your goal getting closer, that's a lot of motivation. Eventually, as your goal gets real close, you could just have this freight train feeling behind you where you're like, there's nothing stopping me. But early in the diet, it's tough. So you need inspiration to get you going. And then you need to catch on to motivation as quickly as possible by making sure you're doing a good job, which we'll get to in a second. But on your way to the goal, if that goal feels hazy, the first clutches of kind of like, up on the ladder you can make are, okay, I lost a pound. I'm doing well. I actually stuck to my diet. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. And all of a sudden you're doing super well and it builds on itself. Another way it builds on itself is you overcoming temptations and being proud of that. Not only did I lose 1.5 pounds last week, but last Friday, all my friends and I went out to this restaurant that I usually love to order disgusting fatty shit from. I stuck to the healthier menu. I still had some good food. I still had a good time, but I didn't break my plan. And I came home, and when no one's around, I was like, oh, yes. I didn't succumb. I overcame. And boy, oh boy, does that boost motivation. You will ride that wave for days, and just the diet will be super easy. So that stuff is really good. And alternatively, if you don't overcome temptation, if you succumb to temptation, if you're like, all right, I'll have nachos with you guys, you just float through the world, it can actually take a little bit away from your motivation. So people will say like, okay, I ate nachos yesterday, but I'm back on the plan. That's actually hard to do. A lot of people, when they fail on their diet, they're like, what's the point? I suck. Because their motivation is down. Motivation is almost self-reinforcing that way. There's other things here that we'll talk about, specifically discipline and willpower, that are not self-reinforcing. They're self-extinguishing. The more of them you use, at least in the short term, the more they deplete. But motivation is like the more of it you have, the more of it you get, which is really, really awesome. Motivation, plotted on this graph, looks like this yellow squiggly line. It keeps your adherence up there. It's not inspiration, which we see as the beginning red line. It doesn't just fall off, right? But it goes up and it goes down. And if you let it go up and down and you only ever perform wherever it is, so if you're highly motivated, you do a great job on the diet. If you're low on the low end, you do a crappy job, right? Notice you didn't quit the diet altogether. It's not at zero, but your adherence is sucky. Look, sucky adherence sometimes means that if you have sucky adherence here and you have good adherence here and you do this, do that, you actually get no results, especially in fat loss. So motivation is not good enough. We need something else. And that next something else is intention. Okay? Motivation is a goal. Your goal can be to lose 15 pounds, and it's sort of like a moth to the light drives you over there. But how to get from point A to point B is intention. Intention is what you do. It's a commitment to execute a plan, okay? My goal is to lose 15 pounds, you can say, but I intend to eat 4 balanced meals per day to get there. Because remember, no goal in the world is helping you with anything unless you do the things it takes to get there. Like, you could really want to drive to Disney World, but if you don't have a car and you don't have a map, you're not going to Disney World. Plain and simple. Wanting to go to Disney World? Motivation. Intention is getting on your phone, Google Mapsing the shit, packing your car full of stuff, and beginning. That's intention, the plan itself, right? Not just a goal, but a roadmap of what actually to do. What is it good for? Well, it sets a clear what to do and what not to do. So it's really easy to be like, okay, I want to lose 15 pounds. We're like, okay, sweet. Okay, how do I do that exactly? Well, if you have intention, you have a plan. And now it's super simple. Not only does motivation make you want to do it, but intention gives you a level of where you have to be every hour, every day, every week of if you do this, you will succeed. If you do less, you won't. If you do more, sweet. This is what you need to do. These are the meals you need to eat. This is when you need to weigh in. This is the exercise you need to do, so on and so on and so on. Right? If you're motivated for a goal, but you don't have intention, then you just have a wish. You say, I want to go to Disney World. Someone's like, have you looked up how far away it is? You're like, no. So you wish to go to Disney World. Well, yeah. I don't plan to go to Disney World. Notice that term, plan. What does plan mean? It means you have a plan, right? Intention is how you get there. It is critical. And a lot of people just don't even know it exists. So be like, I want to stay motivated. Stay motivated for what? Like to lose weight, to lose 15 pounds. Great. How are you going to do that? By dieting. Like, sweet. What kind of diet? Like eating less. How much less? That's where a ton of people fail, is they don't have a plan of some kind. So the biggest thing we can do to boost intention, and don't worry, I'll come back to what it's not good for in a sec, is having a clear diet plan. Where you get that is of much smaller concern. Yes, the RP, we have the app and it gives you that plan and it checks in all your meals for you and you stay accountable. Awesome. We have templates, we have coaches, but there's a bunch of companies that do stuff like that and they're all super, well, not all, a bunch of them suck, but a bunch of the evidence-based ones do really, really good work. And you can even make a plan yourself. It's not that hard. You can read a book and write a plan and it's all gravy, but you have to have a plan. Otherwise, you're free in the wind and you have no idea where you're going. Oh, you want to lose weight, but wants aren't good enough. Now, a really good way to have intentions is to have a really good solid plan, but also a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of flexibility to make sure it's a realistic plan. And someone that can really help is a coach. This is where coaching really helps. So if you're the coach to someone, you can really help them with their intentions by being there, knowing the plan, helping them draft the plan, and holding them accountable to it. It's one thing to say to your clients, hey, how's your diet been? And they're like, good. You're like, sweet. It's another thing to be like, how has your diet been? And they're like, I ate 3 out of 4 meals properly yesterday. And you're like, mm-hmm. And what happened to the 4th meal? They're like, I ate out of the garbage can. You're like, all right, this is ridiculous, right? So coaching is huge to both set intentions, help people set their intentions, and to help them execute by drafting the plan, working feedback on the plan, helping so on and so on and so on. Now, what is intention not good for? And this really sets up the slide after this. Well, we'll do the intention graphic and then the slide after, the concept after, the construct after. Intention is not good for enforcement. Intentions don't enforce themselves. Like you could have any fucking plan in the world and you just not do it. Okay. So you can have the greatest plan ever and you're like, sweet. And then you still have to do the work to meet your actual intention. How are you going to do the work to meet it? When your motivation is good, the work is easy. Right? When you're motivated, you can do anything. But remember, motivation waxes and wanes. So it's not always there. So what intention does for us is it sets up, and this is the visual that we have in this next one, it sets up this little thin blue dotted line I have here. Intention tells you this is the adherence level you're going to be at, and here's how you're going to do it. Intention is you got to eat 4 meals a day, or whatever, do this much cardio, not eat this other crap, and so on and so on and so on. Notice here that when motivation is higher than this blue line, by definition, we're kicking ass. Easy, we're doing it. Our adherence is higher. But what happens when the motivation, that the yellow curve, drops below the blue line? That means we cannot meet our intentions. We're not meeting our intentions, and we're not doing a good job on the diet. What do we have then that steps in is construct number 4, discipline. Here's the real gap closer. Discipline is very easy to define. It is the use of willpower to meet your intentions when motivation is not sufficient to do it. Like if you're really motivated to do something, you don't need willpower, okay? Imagine like you have to go get drinks to go like pre-party or a super fun night on the town with your friends. Can someone say like, man, you're really disciplined to go get those drinks? Like, what? I'm disciplined taking the car and going to the beer store and getting beer and coming back and drinking with my friends? Like, no. Like, well, it must take a lot of willpower. What? Like, I want to do it. This is great. This is going to be a super fun night. I'm motivated to do it. And my motivation is higher than the intention of getting into the car, getting the beer, buying it and bringing it back. It's a no-brainer. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's like breathing. It's actually more fun than just sitting around. Okay, it's more likely to happen than not happen. But the thing is, dieting's not always like going to party with your friends. It can be tough. And sometimes your motivation dips below your intentions. So discipline is really good to be able to direct our willpower to close the gaps between motivation and intention on your low motivation days, so that your adherence is on point to your intentions and you are succeeding, right? That's what discipline is good for, is filling in the gaps between what your intentions are and when your motivation is just a little too low. It's for the tough days. That's it. So it's indispensable for that because your motivation is not always going to be as high as your intentions, but it's not good for sustainable use. People say discipline is everything. That's not true. Because willpower runs out quick and it needs a long time to recharge back to its normal levels, right? It needs to be regularly recharged. If you have like 5 days in a row where your intentions are still there, but your motivation is super low and you use willpower to fill it in, like willpower is teeth gritting stuff. Like, I don't want to diet. I'm a fucking adult. I'm going to do this. Eat your stupid meals and ignore all the tacos people are eating and drive home like this pissed. That's willpower. That shit runs out on you. If you do 5 days of that straight, on the 6th day, you might like just cheat and binge and just don't care anymore because you ran out of willpower. It's possible. So you need motivation to be close to your intentions. And this is a huge part of proper goal setting. If your intentions is like, I'm going to be Mr. Olympia style diet, and your motivation on your best days doesn't even get there, you're not going to be able to fill that gap with willpower. If your intentions are here and your motivation goes like this, you can use willpower to fill in the gaps, no problem. Because you use willpower for a few hours or minutes or hours or days, and then the motivation wanes back up, just like it does mysteriously, goes back and forth. Then all of a sudden, when it wanes back up, you don't have to use willpower anymore. You don't have to be disciplined, and you just do what you do because it's super motivating to do, because you want to do it. And during that time, your willpower recharges, so you can use it with discipline again later. No big deal, right? So discipline is not sustainable, but it doesn't have to be, right? Because motivation will take back over, and then it'll secede, and it'll take back over, and then we just go back and forth just like that. This is really the sort of the yin and yang of dieting, is knowing when your intentions, knowing that your intentions are this, and if you're motivated, sweet, take the easy road, but if you're not, it's time to use discipline by applying your willpower appropriately to close the gaps. Now, how can we boost our discipline? Huge questions. There's tons of books have been written on it. I'm not going to do any justice. But one big one is knowing that there will be hard times and not being surprised by them. A lot of people are under this crazy illusion, and I mean a lot of people, maybe most, that dieting is about finding the right motivation and then you're just on easy street. You're killing it. That's just not true. Even folks at the very top of their game have days where they just don't want to do shit. And then they have to be disciplined about it. Right? If you know that the hard times are coming when they come and you don't feel motivated enough to meet your intentions, you're going to be like, okay, I don't feel great. I don't want to diet, but hold on a second. I knew this was coming and I know I have discipline to be able to exert my willpower. No big deal, right? So knowing is coming is half the battle. It literally is. Coaches and friends are huge here to keep you accountable so that you actually use your willpower, right? Especially coaches will lean on you and be like, it's time to be disciplined. And you're like, yes, I know what that means. And I knew it was coming. And good news is practice does improve your abilities. You exert willpower using your discipline. Once, it could seem like you're fighting a fucking dragon. You do it twice, a large, upset pig. You do it 3 times, a canary. You swat it with a tennis racket, right? So you get better and better and better over time, especially if you let motivation come in and recharge your actual discipline so that you recharge your willpower rather, so that you're not using it when it's super, super low on battery. as you use it and it sort of depletes, when it recharges, a lot of times it recharges to a little bit greater. Now, eventually it peters out, but it peters out at really huge levels. Sometimes people get to like Navy SEAL level of discipline where they can like do a year of insanity and just not give a shit, right? And yeah, they are using willpower the whole time, but they have an almost infinite supply of it. Most of us, when we start out with dieting, and most of us that fail dieting, we do not have a very high supply with it. So we need to make sure we get it right. We need to know it's coming. And we need to look forward to the fact that eventually we will get better at it, right? A really, really good quote I really like is, dieting doesn't get easier, you just get a lot better at it. Same idea here. So discipline, really easy to show graphically on this chart. Discipline is those little blue margins that are filled in right there. Discipline fills in the gaps, literally, between your motivation and intention. It's super awesome to have, but remember that if that's that blue fluid we're putting into the gaps there to meet them, we only have so much of it at any one time. We run out, it recharges, but we can't do it too much. If we have a huge dip in motivation that outlasts our willpower, then we're going to fail on the diet, almost by definition, right? Your willpower has been broken, you've run out of it, and it's not easy times yet. This can be a little scary because you can think, holy shit, I'm going to be battling on my 12-week diet, and it's going to be a battle for the next 12 weeks. Yeah, I might get a little bit better at using my willpower, but like it's just going to be a battle of motivation, discipline. Like this sucks. Hold on, there's really good news. And that good news is the fifth construct of habit. Habit is the automation of dieting so that motivation waxes and wanes a lot less the longer you diet. It used to be your motivation was super high and then super low, and then super high and then super low. And what habit does is it just raises it slightly, and then the ups and downs just get really, really small, right? How motivated are you to brush your teeth? Not really. Okay. How demotivated are you to just stop brushing your teeth? Not really. How much do you think about how much willpower do you have to use to brush your teeth? Good God, almost none. The bare minimum, right? Why? Because it's a habit. You've been doing it for forever. If dieting can become habitual, it becomes 50 trillion times easier, because it creates less of a demand for discipline and for the use of willpower by raising your adherence abilities. That's unbelievable. So essentially we have this problem, right, where we're going to use our discipline to fight willpower to fight motivation for forever. If motivation's high, or discipline, discipline, but all of a sudden those gaps start to narrow, and we have the same amount of discipline as we always have. We have the same amount of ability to exert willpower, actually more, but our demand for exerting that willpower is less and less and less as things become habituated. All right. Once diets are habits, success rates skyrocket. Okay. You could even say that the motivational psychology or the adherence psychology of training, so of being a diet coach, can be summed up as getting your clients to habit. If you can get someone to the habit stage of this process, it's like the biggest difference in the world. And short of them getting to habit, none of this is sustainable, and it really just doesn't work, right? This allows adherence to be in the long term. Now, habit is not an all-powerful thing. It's incredibly powerful, but if you talk to people who have a diet habit, they're actually really crappy at a couple of things. One is giving you an initial spark. You can talk to someone who's habitually dieting and have just been eating healthy for a long time. Like one of my friends from New York, when Nick Shaw and I were personal trainers, Jesse, he's a personal trainer there, and he was in a habit of eating healthy food. And he just always ate healthy. That's just what he did. And he did it for so long that if you asked him like, hey, like, how do I like really get pumped to eat healthy? He'd be like, man, I don't know. This is kind of like when I go into a restaurant, I just order healthy by default. And a lot of us are like that, right? So habit doesn't give you an initial spark. Habit happens way, way later. You have to have the initial spark. You have to have the motivation. You have to use a ton of discipline and willpower. There's no way around that stuff, but eventually it catches on. And habit is not good enough to make you fall in love with the dieting process, which we'll talk about next, which is passion. Right? You can just have a habit look like you're in the habit of brushing your teeth. You don't love brushing your teeth. Okay. It's not hard. It's easy to do. You'll never not do it, but you're not in love with it. So some people be like, oh, as soon as you get to be habitual, you'll fall in love. Like maybe not, maybe I'll hate it. Right? So it's not good for that. And it's not good for the initial spark, but it's good for everything in between, which is really most of everything. Right? So here's the thing. If habit is so important, if getting to habit is so important, how do we make sure we are on our best to try to get habit up as high as possible, as quickly as possible, and have it be as good as possible? So here's the deal. One really good tip, and there's tons of others, it's just examples, using bulk meal prep and using similar foods week to week. Okay, if you prep all your meals in advance every 3 or 4 days or every week, getting into the habit of eating healthy is super easy because like you just open up your fridge and there's Tupperware and you just do it. Right? If you have to make your meals from scratch, geez, that's tough. That's not even a habit, really. That's like a way of life. That's crazy, right? But if you pre-prep your meals, they're almost habitual already. And then you get used to eating prep meals. Holy crap. Dieting is just a matter of doing this and not cheating. That's easy. Right? So a lot of people, dieting means like every single meal is like a choice decision process of what am I going to eat? And there's all this temptation and there's all this ideas about what good food is. But if you prep all your meals in advance, you just 3 or 4 days of instant habit, right? Having similar meal times day to day, really, really important, right? It's 12 p.m. I eat my lunch. I eat my Tupperware meal for lunch. It's 4 p.m. I eat a mid-afternoon snack, and so on and so on and so on. If you don't have dedicated meal times, you'd skip a meal or wait too long or not wait long enough, and all of a sudden you're super hungry and you end up making bad choices. But if you have your meals pre-prepped and you have specific meal times throughout the day, gee, that really sets you up for habits super, super easy. And you just don't have to use a whole lot of willpower because it's just so easy to just not have to do it at all. It's just there for you already. Lastly, is keeping in mind the time. And as someone, if you're watching this as a personal trainer or as a coach, this is a real big thing to keep in mind. And if you're watching it as a prospective client or somebody that wants to apply this to themselves, it's also important to keep in mind time executing the diet is a big factor. We tend to see that 4 to 6 weeks in, most diets get much more habitual. They just start to pick up into habit, which means what? That means in the first 4 to 6 weeks of a diet, if it's not easy, if it's not habitual, don't worry about it. It will get there. Do your best with bulk meal prep and eating times and so on and so forth to get there, but don't freak out. And don't be like, oh my God, 3 weeks into a diet, you're like, dude, I'm trying really hard here. And this is a confusing process that feels like it's new every day. No worries. Right? You look around and everyone else has a habit and you're like, well, how come mine doesn't feel like it's automated? It's okay. It takes a month, sometimes 2. But once it hits, holy crap, you're on easy street for sure. And that's helpful, right? Because if you tell someone, hey, look, like I want you to put your feet into this ice for $1 million. And they ask, okay, like how long do I have to put my feet in the ice for? And they're like, I don't know. At some point we'll tell you when to take it out and you'll win $1 million. Holy crap. Most people will just after 30 seconds, they'll be like, I don't need this. I don't need $1 million. I want my feet. But if you tell someone, look, 2 minutes is when you get the $1 million, they can hang in through unbelievable pain. It's just a fact. Just the same way if you tell them, look, after about 4 or 6 weeks, your diet will get notably easier because your habits will start to kick in. In week 3, when they want to quit, if they didn't know that, they'd be like, well, this is this hard now. It's probably just going to keep getting harder because my body's going to resist fat loss even more. I'm out. But if they know week 3 is the toughest week, and then at week 4 and so on, it gets easier, maybe they'll hang in. Really good to tell them, really good to tell yourself. So visually, habit looks like this, right? Notice that the motivation waxes and wanes less, okay? The amplitude closes, and the average motivation level goes up. So all of a sudden, the amount of willpower we have to use to fill in the gap between motivation and intention is just not that high. Easy. This is awesome, right? So adherence is easier to do. You have a higher level of adherence with habit, and motivation used to go up and down a lot, and it just doesn't go up and down that much anymore. Really, really cool. How much does your motivation to brush your teeth go up and down? It's so habitual that it just like, I don't know, sometimes you want to do a little less, sometimes you're really excited to brush your teeth because they feel dirty, right? Nothing to write home about. Whereas with dieting, or sometimes you want to hate it and throw it away, and sometimes you can't wait to do a really good job. Lastly, and we do mean lastly because this is lastly both in the how long it takes to open up this phase and also in terms of importance, is passion, right? Passion is the love of the dieting process. And a lot of us folks that are watching this are professionals in the field one way or another. We actually are passionate about dieting. Passion is really good for fueling your adherence to insane levels, right? And that either leads to super easy and fun dieting experiences for just health and wellness, or the ability to get super shredded and take your diet to the next level because you have that much more ability to adhere. Passion gives you super adherence powers. But it has its limitations. Passion is not good for something you can get in just a few weeks. So a lot of psycho personal trainers or fitness influencers on Instagram, they're like, I'm going to make you passionate about fitness. Like, no, that takes months and years. You can't do that. What they mean is inspired. Passion and inspiration are 2 very different things. Passion lasts maybe forever, but it takes a long time to earn and not everyone gets there. Inspiration is cheap, easy, and lasts for hours or days, right? 2 very different things. You can inspire people in minutes, You can't make them passionate even in weeks. There's never a guarantee of passion, but there are ways to increase the chances. And the passion's not for everyone. As long as you have habits, you're good to go. Passion is optional, but it can be a great thing. A couple of ways to boost it. You can let the successes of dieting get to your head. Like you got abs for the first time in your life and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did it. I love this. And all of a sudden, the next diet you do, you might love. And all of a sudden you're in passion. You want to diet with friends and like-minded people that support you and are positive. They're getting results. You're getting results. You're living the same fitness lifestyle. When you're going to the beach, you're bringing healthy food in the cooler. Oh my God, it's tough not to be passionate about that kind of thing. Huge one is taking breaks from the diet to do easier dieting, more cheat meals, etc. when you need it, and never letting diet become this terrible route to endless suffering. If you diet tough, and it starts really getting tough, you ease up, you maintain, you eat some good foods, you have fun, your diet fatigue goes down, you have relief, you look back, you have this great shape, and you're not diet fatigued. You do another diet where it gets tough, and then you do the same thing. After a while, you're like, oh my God, I'm a fucking dieting machine. I love this whole thing because there's nothing bad. It's like working at your favorite job for 5 days and having an awesome weekend for 2 days, and you get to go back to work at your favorite job. But if you work at your favorite job for 7 days a week, and then for 5 weeks straight on some crazy project, you could be mind numb. You don't even know what weekends are. You could really start to lose any kind of excitement or any kind of love for it, and your adherence could start to falter. So a big part about dieting properly and enhancing the chances of not just having good habits, but good passion is to make sure you're taking breaks when you need them. Huge part, huge part. Another big part is having fun with dieting, getting into cooking, getting into recipes, having fun with your foods. If you eat chicken breast and white rice and that's the only thing you think is dieting, very difficult to get passionate about that, let's be completely honest. And a really big way to get passionate, sometimes it's not for everyone, is to help other people with their diets. Once you help other people have success, it's really easy to fall in love with the whole process. In our little graphic here, passion is this sort of forest green little wavy thing, and notice passion still has its motivational undertones. Remember we said motivation lasts the entire time for the rest of your life, but notice that the waxes and wanes are very small now, even smaller than they were in habit, but the route is up almost like in an exponential manner. Passion is when your ability to adhere just keeps climbing up to crazy heights because you're just in love with the process. If we can get someone to passion, holy crap, we wouldn't have an obesity problem in the United States. It's not likely we will. We can get a lot of people to habit though, and it really is worth trying. So it's all about the long term. Most people can diet for a few weeks, but few make it more than that. If you know all the 6 constructs of adherence, you can boost them as much as possible, and we can keep more people, including ourselves, on the diet train towards habit. And once we have people habitually dieting properly for health or for fat loss or whatever, we're already in a winning battle. Not everyone will get to passion, but habit is more than good enough for most. And it's a really good start. If you know these constructs, you can become a better coach, not just for yourself, but for other people as well. Folks, give this some thought. Shoot some questions in the comments. Maybe we'll do another one of these for training. We'll see. See you next time.